2, 1. Welcome to the Mobile Hunter Podcast. We're your hosts, Rick Cates, Chris Leppert, and Josh Luck. What's up, guys?
Hey, everyone.
And today we are sitting with Pat Newcomb of Nukem Hunting. Because this is the first one we've done, all three of us together, and I've already screwed it up. Jeez, oh Pete. How's it going today, Pat?
Hey, man, it's going good. You can't screw anything up. It's fine.
Good deal. Good deal.
Don't you let them off that easy.
Hey, it's early.
It is early. It is early. Well, Pat, we're real happy to sit down with you tonight. So, if you could, can you give everybody a little bit of background of your life in hunting and kind of how you came to be in the outdoors?
Yeah, so I was born up in northern Wisconsin, but have grown up in the South. I live in North Carolina, and fortunate enough to live in the mountains. So it's just a beautiful area and a lot of outdoor enthusiasts in this area. So I grew up my whole life when we weren't on a ball field in the woods. And it started with just, dad's going deer hunting and he's coming home and you're seeing the kills and helping him skin them out and do that kind of stuff. And Dad didn't allow us to do anything outside of squirrel hunting until we were 10 or 11. And asked me why, but I think it was just the days were different back then. And maybe he needed his own time in the woods, and maybe he wanted to wait till we were completely ready. I don't know. So I started basically deer hunting first year or two. And then as Dad got into turkey hunting, it was in South Carolina or in Tennessee. He started taking me with him a little bit. And he took me on my first turkey hunt when I was 12 years old, and I got hooked from it. I killed 2 birds, and from that day, it was always turkeys are on my mind, even during deer season and everything else. And I just grew up hunting them and started calling myself. And then the next thing you know, you're taking buddies with you. And for years, I've been the guy that when I tag out, my goal is to be in the woods as many days as possible. So I'm trying to find anybody and everybody that's got a tag in their pocket. And if they don't know how to hunt, I'm gonna try to teach you, because I want to be in the woods as much as possible.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So Pat, you were saying as you grew up, it was a lot of small game hunting with Dad prior to getting in the woods, and he took you turkey hunting, and then after that, it was the fever bit you.
Yeah, and it wasn't that I had somebody that was out there teaching us how to do it, because I remember from a young age when we were out there doing it with my dad, you'd hear one gobble in 4 or 5 days. And once you found that one gobble, then what? And how do you learn? And what do you know? We didn't have the videos and the accessibility to everything we have these days to learn. So it was a lot of learn on the go. And fortunately enough, we were still able to kill some birds and just kept getting hooked every more and more every year. Until, once I kind of got through the high school and then college and living on my own, and now I'm working for a living. And my main business, I opened a tree company when I was 22 years old. So I was in control of my own time, which was very important for me. But at the beginning, when you worked for me and it was turkey season, it wasn't that the boss man's going hunting because I was an owner operator business. It was, we're shutting down that week. And that's just kind of protocol. And, as the businesses grew and everything else, it got to the point where you could trust people to work for you. But pretty much every week of my life, every opening week of my life, as long as I can remember, I've been in the turkey woods. And I hope God lets that keep continuing for years to come, because that's my goal every single spring, is at least opening a week in the woods, and now more and more all season if I can be.
Amen to that. I remember
Absolutely.
my first year, I started staying at home with my little girl when she was born, and I missed opening week. We opened on a Monday then, and I couldn't get anybody to watch her. And I literally put decoys in my backyard and sat there and called for a while, praying to God a turkey would come and I could shoot it out of my backyard with a bow. Because there are a few turkeys back there, but it just wasn't working out. But man, missing opening week is tough. So good for you, dude.
I have had to miss it one time, I guess. My family planned a big family reunion about 8 hours from the house, and it was one of those that you don't see the family but every 6-8 years.
Yeah.
And mom and my wife and everybody said, Pat, we're going, you're going. And oh man, it was terrible. It was all I could do the whole time I was there is think about the woods. I'm calling my buddies, they're home hunting, and it's just don't do that to me again.
I'm so glad there's others like me.
So Pat, I got a question for you. So you live in North Carolina,
Yes,
as you stated, and you're like the perfect guy to ask this because you ran a tree business. For you in North Carolina, we had Shane Simpson on. What was that? Probably last year at some point.
Well, hell, we've had him on quite a
We had
bit.
him on-
It was the year before last year.
year before last.
For turkeys.
So for turkeys. So when we talked to him, he's from South Carolina originally, and he talked about how kind of felling trees and some of the stuff down there, prevented birds from being able to, get numbers up and that kind of stuff. Have you guys seen any of that in North Carolina with any of the, like anything that you guys do down there, or have turkey numbers stayed pretty stable from your youth until your adulthood?
So our turkey numbers have been on a steady rise my entire childhood. Now, mind you, when people think of North Carolina, a lot of people think Eastern North Carolina, it's flat, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm as far west in North Carolina as you can go. I'm just north of Asheville.
Okay.
So we're in the mountains, and when you say the tree cutting, like we don't have big logging operations and stuff like that here.
Okay.
So that hasn't really affected the turkey population. Even through this whole downturn that everything's been going on, we've all been watching the biologists, and we've all seen the natural dips, and everybody worried about it, and the changing of the seasons and bag limits and everything else going on in the country. And for me at home, I've always been like, man, it doesn't seem like much is changing. We still have a good population. But I also kind of equate that to, I think, the properties I probably hunt and manage myself. For instance, just a little 40-acre tract, I'm a guy that takes and puts game cameras out in the spring, just like you would in the fall. And I'm not trying to get the pattern of the bird. We're trying to get how many longbeards do we have on property, especially this time of year in February, early March, when they're all in a pack and you see 6 or 8. So, you can take a couple. But like a little 40-acre tract a couple years ago, we were only seeing 3 longbeards on it all year long. So we gave that property a year off. We didn't hunt it. And the next year that property was absolutely on fire.
Nice.
So
nice.
But all that to be said, last year was my first concern in Western North Carolina of what's happening with our turkey population. I'm not hearing the gobbles I was hearing as much and as frequent. So I'm wondering if we're not a little late on the path of all that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
What's your state's bag limit?
2.
2?
Okay.
Okay. Ohio was at 2 at one point, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, and then we switched it to 1. When did we switch to 1? It
Just
wasn't.
a couple years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't that long ago, and I feel
2
like
years ago.
it's done the state well. I mean,
yeah.
I'm probably the greenest here as far as turkey hunting goes. I'm a late onset turkey hunter. Didn't really get into it consistently until 2019. But I feel like since I've been hunting Ohio, the numbers have been relatively good.
Yeah. We had a 2-bird population when we shouldn't have for a while. I mean, I remember at a certain WMA that Rick has hunted. We've actually all hunted together at one point, but I remember when they turned turkeys loose there and we're doing studies and everything. This was when I was a freshman in high school. So they've still been kind of working on them over the last couple of decades here in even Southern Ohio. You really had to go pretty far east until you got into those really good populations. But in my opinion, we should have been a 1-bird state, or at least had like zones where you could take a bird here and then go to this zone and take another one, because where I'm at isn't the greatest still, but it's significantly better than 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even.
Well, and to all that being said on that, like I'm a firm believer in what they are doing right now to try to save the turkeys. And, I'm also on the, you can take this however you'd like. Like I look at it, if you got a guy out there, I don't care if he's 40 or 4 and it's his first bird, and hey, he's going to shoot that Jake and it's a legal bird, take it. Right. Like whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I think part of the biggest problem, at least I know in our area, and I know it happens everywhere, is you can set any bag limit you want, but you got to get guys to obey by them.
Sure.
And, at least in this part of the country, we don't have a lot of wardens. We have a very bad tagging system. And, I grew up knowing guy after guy after guy, whether it be a deer, a turkey, a bear, whatever, there wasn't even thought of tagging.
Yep.
So the ones that are going to play by the rules are going to do it right anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't know that you're really going to catch a lot, like as far as like the tagging system goes, for example, if you're going to break the law, you're probably going to break it regardless, right? Like it's tough to catch them. Even with the metal tagging system, you could get around it. And the shitty part about turkeys is it's not a big deer that you got to drag or cut up and pack out. Like you can stuff a turkey anywhere. Like it's easy to just hide. So.
Oh yeah, and I mean even now, half the times if we're way back in there, we'll go ahead and field dress them and pack. But we could go down that rabbit hole for a long time. But I think as a whole, and I attended the National Wild Turkey Symposium. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it was in Asheville a couple of years back, and that's where all the biologists and the researchers meet and everything else. And I felt like the biggest outcast when I walked in that room. Like I just didn't feel like I fit in. But it was 3 days of my life that I learned more about the wild turkey than I had in the 42 years I've been on Earth.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
It was awesome. And if you can ever get a hold of some notes from a symposium or listen to them or, follow the Wild Turkey Doc, Mike Chamberlain, he's one of them. He'll give you a lot of that kind of stuff. And I would say to anybody hunting anywhere, educate yourself as much as you can. Never stop learning about the wild turkey, and you will respect that animal more and more every single day of your life.
Absolutely.
Very, very well put. We take the conservation pretty seriously here. It's something that's kind of near and dear to us, so we can appreciate that big time.
Absolutely. So, that leads us into a little bit more of your kind of resume as a turkey hunter. And for those of you who can't see, because if you're not watching on YouTube, there's some beautiful mounts directly behind you there.
Yeah, you're gonna want to check those out.
Yeah, you're gonna want to watch the YouTube video of this. If for no other reason to check these mounts out. They're absolutely sick. So can you tell us a little bit about obviously you didn't all kill all those in one state, but can you tell us a little bit about traveling around and going for, you got a Grand Slam, World Slam?
So yeah, what you're looking at behind me is actually the World Slam.
Wow.
All on one tree.
So cool.
That was a feat I did 2 years ago. A little back history on it first before I get into the slam is growing up here in Western North Carolina. I also live 15 miles from the Tennessee border. So growing up, I always get Tennessee tags, North Carolina tags. There's a great stretch of land right down the Appalachian Trail. You can hunt both states. We also knew people in Tennessee. So we killed a lot of turkeys growing up. South Carolina, we're in a great spot where you can hit 4 or 5 states in a hurry. So I killed a lot of Easterns growing up, and never in my right mind did I think, okay, I'm going to go do a World Slam or a Grand Slam even. I was always of the mentality of, I don't really need to travel that much to turkey hunt. They're right here in my back door. Why don't I just hunt these? But as so as Nukem Tree Service, that's my tree company, took off and we got great growth from it. I got to a point where that business was running at a point where I didn't have to be there every single day. And several different things in my life led me to where I'm at today with Nukem hunting. And I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but that is what got me into more of the traveling of the turkey hunter that I am now, because it was the connections I was meeting at trade shows. It was the people that were inviting me out different areas. And if you can say this with a straight face, I'm going to try my best. But I did not plan to do a World Slam, and I did not plan to do it in a year, literally until March, April of that season.
Oh my God.
Holy Christ.
It literally fell in my lap.
Are you married?
I am. I'm married. I've got
The same person that you were married to then?
yeah. So this was just
Wow.
literally season before last. This mount showed up. I picked it up last week when I was up in India at the trade show. So I've only had it in up here in the house for a couple days.
Oh man.
It's fresh. But what happened was I was working trade shows. I've also worked pretty heavily with, and if you haven't seen it, I urge you to go check it out. Dying Breed Television. It's on the Pursuit channel. I kind of started working with them as a small sponsor, and that got me invited on some deer hunts and some crane hunts and some different pheasants and just some awesome traveling and hunting and experiences with crews and cameramen, and we just had a good time. I also worked with Jimmy Seitz a little bit on Spiritual Outdoors, and what all that did in all my rambling, to say the least, is it gave me just a little bit of traveling and hunting and what the life is like on the road, in the camps, hanging out with the people, let alone the experiences you get in the woods. So what is today? It's 25. So I guess that was done in 23, that trade show season. I got invited. A guy wanted some hunting blinds, and I said, "Hey, I'll swap you for a turkey." He was an outfitter. So that was the first swap I did, and I lined up a bird in Florida. So
Nice.
from that, it was still not really anything planning, and just kind of organically. I don't know if you guys know of Sean Lundy Life, great guy. Gotten to know him, and he's in my booth one day, him and his son, and he says, "Hey, have you ever killed a Rio?" And I hadn't. I said, "No." And he said, "I got a buddy of mine you need to hook up with in Texas sometime when you want to do it." And I kind of just didn't register it, even try to move forward with it. And next thing I know, I'm talking to Sean with Dying Breed Television, and he is telling me about, what are you going to do this fall? And we're trying to plan our deer hunts and everything else. And we're just kind of back and forth about the whole spring and what's going to go on. I'm going to see if I can get them up here to the house and hunt. And so I've got open conversations in a couple different places about turkey hunting, but nothing really locked down. And then I'm on Instagram one day and I see the Gould turkeys. I don't know if you guys has anybody been to Mexico and hunted Goulds?
Nope. Like watching videos about them though.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm going to book that hunt. I want to book that. So I got a hold of Jay Scott and worked out some stuff with him. And next thing you know, I booked the Gould. So that was my spring. I was going to go kill an Osceola, come home and kill an Eastern, and go kill a Gould. And after I booked that, I was on the phone with Sean with Dying Breed, and I was at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And he said, "Pat, you are lacking 2 birds of the Royal Slam. What are you doing? Like, you need to line them up." So I knew I had the connection with Lundy down in Texas. So I literally walked the outfitter hall, and I was like looking for Miriam turkey mounts and figuring out which guy I can go talk to. And I stumbled across a booth. His name's Neil with Rock Road Outfitters. And I said, "That's Miriam, right?" I mean, that's my negligence to it. I knew it was a Miriam or Rio, but I wasn't like where I am today with turkeys. He said, yeah. I said, well, how many hunting blinds do you need? I need to come kill one. And we worked out a deal. And he said, just apply for some tags at the Rosebud Reservation. It's 1 million acres of land. You can stay at my place. Come whenever you want. So now I had them all lined up except for the Rio. I called Sean. He hooked me up with the guy. And next thing you know, I've got a Royal Slam lined up for a season.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really pretty incredible. And now we're in the, into the end of February and getting into NWTF. And I knew there was one bird left for the World Slam. And I did the same thing. I just kind of hit the floor and started talking to outfitters and guides, and met another guy, Jeff Hirschbach, with Worldwide Pursuit. And he wanted some blinds. And I've got a great story with my daughter. She is an absolute turkey hunter like you've never seen. She's 13 years old. She's calling in her own birds, and she's killed more than most grown men. So that's always a good in with some of these guys. And with Jeff, I literally pitched it as me and my daughter want to come down and we want to kill some turkeys. And now I had an entire World Slam lined up. So we were off, and I don't know how much detail you want me to get in as far as the season. I can make it pretty quick. Do you guys want to hear about?
Oh yeah,
all that went?
Overview of your World Slam. Yes.
So, Presley is my daughter's name, and at this point, I think she was at 23 or 24 turkeys. She was 11 years old, and we're in the truck on the way to Florida. And I had no clue where we were going as far as what the guy had land wise. He said he had some spots he could let us run. He said they weren't big plots, but we could come down and hunt. And about halfway down to Florida, I looked over at Presley in the passenger seat and I said, hey, just so you know, you're going to have to let Dad shoot the first one. Which out of all the birds she's ever killed and all the hunts we've ever been on, she'd never seen me kill a turkey. Just because you guys have kids, and if you don't,
yep.
Anybody listening knows, I mean, it means the world when your kid kills something with you, and I'd much rather that any day of the week. And she took it like a champ. She said, yeah, okay, no problem. And little did I actually think we would only see one bird, let alone have one opportunity, but that's exactly what happened in Florida. And we got turned loose on about 30 acres, and it just wasn't much land, and the birds weren't on us. They were on the other land, and we were already behind the 8 ball because it was the first week of April. The season's been open for 5 weeks, but I've been doing trade shows, and I had zero chance of hunting before that. So it was tough hunting, and we ended up getting a bird. Well, I should say I ended up getting a bird, and the funny thing is Presley's sitting there with her gun on her lap, and we're sitting side by side, but kind of at an L shape. She's looking right, I'm looking straight ahead, and she looks at me and she says, about time we see a turkey. And literally as she said that, a bird walked out 10 yards in front of her. Now it's off my blind side, so off my right shoulder. And she was great. She sat there, and fortunately we had the Nukem blinds in front of us because I had to make a turn on a bird at a 180 at 10, 12 yards and got it. And Presley was a champ, and we celebrated it, and we had a good time with it. And we hunted another day and a half there, and just we worked some birds, but just couldn't close the deal for her. And we had kind of open invitation, and she was on spring break, and she had 3-4 more days we could have spent down there. But have you ever been hunting and you just know it's not right? Like as far as the temperature's off, as far as the birds or the deer, and just stuff's not moving like it should. And I looked at her and I said, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, opening day is tomorrow at home. You want to go home? And she said, yeah, let's do it. And fortunately, we'd already gotten her a bird the day before we left for Florida. So she was kind of checked off already for a turkey, although we were disappointed she didn't get one in Florida. We drove through the night, got home at 4:30 in the morning, and the next day her and I hit a spot where I'd been doing a lot of scouting, and and the birds were there, but we had 25-mile-an-hour winds and just horrible rain. And we literally sat there and watched the birds in the tree till 10 o'clock in the morning. They didn't even fly down. And when they finally did, they pitched straight away from us. And we decided it was one of those days we were so wet and drowned that we were going to the house. So she had school the next morning, and I got up with a buddy of mine, and we hit the woods. And sitting on a hilltop, I've got a trusty shotgun at this point. It's a Winchester 1100 that I've killed. I think it was 86 birds on the stock I had on that gun.
Wow.
Not that I'd killed with that one. And it was just one of those guns that when you pulled the trigger, you knew you were killing a bird with it. And that's kind of a vital point to this entire slam. So I want you to remember that as I just said that. You pull the trigger, bird dies, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah. So second day in North Carolina season, everything's perfect. Birds fly down, walk down 20 yards from us, 25 yards from us. I got a bird at full strut. We got 4 gobblers in front of us and hens, and it's just the ideal hunt. And I pull the trigger and every bird in the world flies off and disappears. And I am like just dumbfounded. But I didn't think about anything except for this piece of brush that was waving in front of me. So I was like, okay, yeah, I must have hit some brush. It happens to all of us. If you haven't missed a turkey, I guarantee you haven't turkey hunted enough. So we decided to regroup. We hunt a lot of small properties here. If you get a big tract, you're doing good. So when I say small properties, some of them are 40, 50, 60 acres. We do have one large one, but the rest of them are pretty small. So we just bounced from that property over to another small property about 45 minutes from there, and ended up calling in 6 nice big old longbeards. And that hunt went absolutely perfect. We had a bird come down the hill gobbling. We thought we moved above him. We didn't. They all came down gobbling above us, and I had my eastern. So the first 3 days in the woods, I had 2 birds on the ground. I'm like, man, this is just going to be too easy. You know, I know what eating crow is. If y'all don't, so at this point, I was in the ventures of a new company with Nukem Hunting. Spring's taken off. I'm managing and selling the blinds. It's my wife and I as the company. I'm also the owner of a tree company. I've got payroll and bills, and it's just I still have to work for a living. So I took the next 3 days, went out every morning with somebody. We killed some more birds. I worked. I did 3, 4, 5 days of work and hunting around the house. And it really got the blood pumping because it was a great season. We had the birds all over us. But I jumped a plane and took off to West Texas and got to go hunt with Chad Bishop. He's a rising country singer, and Will Allison, which is Davey Allison's nephew. I don't know if you guys are into racing, but ended up on totally 9,000 acres, Rio country, just awesome country. And it was one of those, it's just run and gun turkey hunting. You're out there with a call and you're hitting them and they're gobbling. And first bird in Texas, there again, should have been a very easy shot, and it didn't happen. Missed the bird. And at this point, I'm like, what's going on? So I told him, I said, we've got to go back, and I need to shoot this gun. I mean, it's like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, first day in Texas. I've still got a couple days. Let's shoot this gun. So we take it, and knowing what I know now, I would have done it differently. But I put the target out at 20 yards. I pulled the trigger, and it was a dead bird. So we continued off into the woods.
Oh.
And we didn't get anything that day. The next day, we were out there again, and one of those mid-morning kind of, 9,000 acre ranch, you're covering a lot of it in a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going down the road, and Chad says, just the other day, a bird gobbled right here. And he kind of hits the gas in the truck. I said, whoa, stop. I said, let's get out and call real quick. Well, he's like, well, that was 2 days ago. I said, well, let's get out and call. So we get out, hit a box call, and this bird fires off. I mean, just instantly. But he was distant. and Chad knew the property real well, and he said, we can cut through this hedge. We can get across this little meadow, and there's a logging road on the back side of it. Let's get over there and see what we can see. So we took off. I mean, it was one of those, we left the majority of what we had in the truck, and we took off, and we got over that road. And if you're ever following somebody and they just stop and like their foot's kind of still up in the air, you know what I mean? Like, something's up.
Mm-hmm.
And he stopped right in front of me and did that as he's looking around this big cedar tree. And I just very calmly, just like, I said, what, you see something? And he said, you better shoot it. Well, I'm looking, and I'm in a cedar tree. I can't see anything. So I kind of put my gun up and pull the branches down on the cedar tree, and this turkey's about 8 yards running right at us.
Wow.
Jeez.
Jesus.
So when I pulled the trigger on it, when he flopped down, he was literally laying at the end of my gun barrel. He was about 2 steps. So the gun was on for that range. We hunted. We actually killed another Rio while we were there, and I had a little longer span. I had an entire week this time, so I jumped a plane straight from Texas straight to South Dakota. I had to rent a car. It was a 3-hour drive, and yes, just like anybody is thinking that's listening right now, if you're gonna plan on this kind of traveling for turkey season, it is expensive. It's not free, I promise. So had to rent a car, drive 3 hours, and end up in Gregory, South Dakota with Rock Road Outfitters. And it was kind of one of those, okay, here you go. This is your land. Have fun. But he left me a young kid that had done a little bit of turkey hunting, but more or less just kind of knew the land. And we fought and fought and fought for 2.5 days because of the weather. It was just nasty. It was windy. It was just the worst turkey hunting weather you could have. And we had one encounter with a good tom, and it was one of those, I need to put a stalk on this bird. I need to beat him to his location kind of a deal. And when I got to where I needed to be, I got there about the same time the turkey did, and I pulled up and I shot, and the bird ran off. So at this point, I know instantly. I'm like, it's the gun. There's something majorly wrong with this gun. Like, I haven't missed this many turkeys in a season ever. So we took it back and we did a big pattern test on it. And I don't know to this day. It's in my gun safe. I've put every choke in the world in it. I don't know if it's got a bent barrel. I don't know what happened to it, but it holds a real nice pattern to about 15 yards. And after that, I guarantee you any one of y'all could stand at 30 yards and you might not take a pellet. So,
Wow.
It was a heartbreaker to lose your gun
Yeah.
like that, let alone in a season you're trying for this feat. And I had no choice. I had to come back home. I could not stay there and hunt any longer. And I kind of hung my hat on the Miriam and said, you know what, this might not happen this season, but I'm gonna still continue on the rest of the journey and just kind of see how things lie. And it was already a stretch for the family. I'm sure you guys are all family guys, and a lot of people listening. And you take off 3 months on the road doing trade shows, and then you come home and you tell your wife and kids that I'm going to miss some soccer season. I'm going to miss a lot of this because I'm going to be selfish and I want to go kill turkeys. Yeah, you're having fun doing it. Don't get me wrong, but there's those nights and there's those times in the woods that's what you're thinking about, right? Like these kids are getting older. So I had that spot on top of this hill in South Dakota. I was like, I guess it's okay. Like, I'm going to go to Mexico in a couple weeks and we're going to just see what happens with the season. And before I left, Neil pulled me to the side and he said, I just want to let you know, he said, if you get the rest of that done, our season's open till the end of May. Why don't you come back up? And I kind of left it like, yeah, we'll see what the wife says. And that was it. So one, I guess, detail I'd left out was I wasn't trying to complete the World Slam in that one season. I was trying to complete the Royal, which is the 4 US plus the Mexican Gould or the Gould in general, if you can get an Arizona tag. So I had lined up the oscillated for the following spring, so it would all be in a 12-month calendar year, but not the same season. And I went back home. I had to get back to work. I forget what the obligations were, but work and paying bills. So I came back home and I worked for about 8, 10, 12 days. And I was off to Mexico. And that was an adventure in itself. You know, I've been on a lot of great vacations, and it's always detailed the wife, one of my brothers, dad, good friend, whatever. And I took off on this entire venture for the most part outside of Florida by myself. But I end up on the plane down to Mexico, and on this little plane is all the Woodhaven crew and David Blanton, and just it's turkey country on this plane, right? And all these guys that I've idolized for years, and I'm talking turkey with them on an airplane. So that gets you jacked up in yourself. And went down to Mexico, and it was an awesome hunt. Goulds are a whole nother species to hunt. They really are vocal, and they really call a lot coming in, and they're a lot of fun. And the weirdest part was when I got into camp, it was myself and 4 other guys in the same camp. And they said, your guide will be here in the morning. Okay. I don't know if you noticed, I just said singular, your guide.
Yeah, you said single guide.
Okay. Well, Cade Purser, he's a great kid. He's out of Western United States somewhere. I forget exactly where he's from, but he shows up the next morning, and I'm kind of expecting his other guides to hop out of the truck, and it just didn't happen. He said, no, we're all hunting together. We all
4 guys together?
Well, it'd be 6.
Oh, Jesus.
Because it was me plus 4 hunters plus Cade.
Wow.
And he's like, no, we'll all go together. And the landowner's going to join us too. So we got 7. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. These birds are easy. Anywhere you've ever been, and if somebody tells you it's going to be an easy hunt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hold on, right? Oh, they come in groups. Just be careful when you guys double up. Like, give it a chance for the birds to separate before the second hunter. And they're like, how easy this is going to be. And absolutely, yes, we got the job done, and we all hunted together for the first hunt. And Brandon, one of the other guys, he took a bird. We hunted in the afternoon, and then he took a bird the following morning. And it was one of those typical hunts where you sit down and you call and you see them, and it's a long ways, and you have to wait, and they come in, right? And it was great, and we got it all on video, and we were all sitting somewhat together, and it was like, okay, this might really be how they hunt here. So it was weird. So we all take off that next after he killed his, and I was the next one up to bat. I forget if we drew straws or how we decided the order of who was killing, but I was second on the list, and we ended up spotting a bird way off in the distance and making some moves on him and getting set up, and called him right up, and I shot that bird at like 8 yards. It was just awesome. It came right into a decoy, and from there, like, my pressure in Mexico was off. I still had 4 days down there because you plan these trips kind of long, and I still had another bird, and so did some of these other guys, and we kind of started fighting and not having the best luck. We were calling in singles and not killing them, and ended up calling in. Actually, the guide ended up splitting us up, and he asked me and Brandon, he said, can you guys just go off by yourselves? I need to really get this father-son group a bird. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'll send you the second best spot. We're like, okay, whatever. Like, that's fine. Well, he took us to the second best spot, and we yelped up a bird for Brandon, and he shot it. And as we're sitting there kind of joking and doing a little interview and hanging out on camera, another one gobbles, and we called him right in, and I killed him. So I kind of joke with Brandon to this day. I'm like, that second best spot's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And then we fought the rest of the trip to get the other 2 a bird, and we ended up doing it on the last day there. But that gould hunting is, if you haven't been, it's a different hunt. It's an adventure, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a beautiful country.
They're all kind of like hunting these Easterns, these stubborn ass Easterns that just want to hang up a lot, and then going out west. So I got to experience Texas Rios last year, but God God had a similar joke in mind for me that he did for you. I had to bow hunt him, and the Texas wind doesn't just let your decoys do what you want. You just put a blind up and all that. So I went a couple of days, and the gentleman who invited me out killed one with a bow, and then I said, all right, like, can I take a gun now? The first time we went out, like, if I would have had a 410 judge, I could have limited out day one with 4 birds. Just give me a damn gun, please. So, but I've heard the Merriams cover a lot of ground as well, and those Rios do just come right in.
Oh,
right.
you hit that call and they run to you. It seems
Dude,
like.
it's nuts. And
he's 600 yards. You better sit down.
So well, so the bird that I killed, we go out there and I'm calling and we hear nothing. It's evening and I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. I've got a gun now. Now nothing. They're all going to shut up. We saw a billion turkeys, before that. So, and then all of a sudden I hear one and he's just about as far as you can hear him, or so I think. I mean, the wind's pretty rough there. And then maybe a couple minutes later, he's cut half the distance already. Yeah. And I'm like, oh shit, we better go get sat down. And you can't just sit anywhere where I was. I was probably about 2 hours west of San Antonio. And like your best trees are those little like scrub oak looking dudes. Like you can't just sit anywhere. So
somebody should make something where you could just plop down and have some cover.
That would be a thing. That actually would have been pretty bad. But, well, no, that would have worked. That was the other thing is I couldn't get my stake blind in the damn ground. So I was playing hell. I was fighting a lot of things. And so we backtracked like 150 yards away from the bird just so we could sit up against some trees and some cover. And, dude, we sat there for 3-4 minutes and then all of a sudden I hear something. I think I hear drumming because I'm special needs and can't hear drumming basically. And here he comes. And
Can you hear the spit?
I can hear the spitting. I can hear everything else. And I'm like on an autistic level where I can hear crazy stuff, but the drumming, that's really the only time I'd ever heard drumming before in my life, unless it was on audio and I blasted it.
Yeah.
I killed my Ohio bird. It was roosted 30 feet above me, directly above me, and I never heard him or the other birds drum at all. And maybe they weren't, but when that Rio got to 25 right before I shot him, I literally jumped because I heard, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
It is awesome. And I see now why nobody else gets snuck up on by these damn things. I can't hear the special noise they make when they get close. So that was pretty cool, though. It's fun to hunt those other subspecies. Continue on your story, sir.
Have you ever put a tetra in your ear?
A what?
Tetra hearing?
No.
So I have like constant tinnitus ringing in my ears.
Oh, okay.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, I lost sense of direction on turkeys. I couldn't tell you if it was left, if it was right. I mean, they could be hammering, and I'd point right. My daughter would look at me, and I'd be like, "No, Dad, it's over there." Like,
is that from running saws?
Saws, guns. I mean, you name it. Okay. I'm sure. Yeah. The hearing devices 25 years ago weren't what they are now, anyway.
Oh.
I got one more quick Rio story while you're on the Rios.
Talk about them all day.
The second before the day I killed my bird that morning, we had found a roost spot on the neighboring farm, and we knew we can get as close to it as possible. But
the tree.
Oh no, there was good cover and everything, and the only problem was there was the neighbor's fence, right? And I'm not going to talk too much about me, but they made it real clear that you don't shoot across that fence. And that's hard to do sometimes.
Well, sure.
Especially when that bird's at 18 yards and there's 2 of them and they're walking up and down this fence line and they would just not come across it. It literally got to the point where we were like, we have to get away from these birds because we're going to end up getting in trouble.
Sure.
But yeah, so Rios come until you need them really to come closer, and then they don't. they do turkey things, right?
Yep.
So I flew home from Mexico, and I'd done 4 of the 5 at this point, and I hadn't even brought up or even thought about mentioning to my wife that there is a possibility I'm going back and I'm going to do the Miriam. But it was like verbal diarrhea as soon as I got home. I mean, it was like, okay, here's the deal. Okay, I have a chance. I can go back and what do you think? Kind of a situation. And she looked at me and she said, well, if you don't do it this year, you're just going to want to go do it all again, aren't you? I said, yeah, absolutely. She was like, well, you better go back. So I had done kind of a self-filming of this entire season. Some guys kind of helped me, like Cade in Mexico ran a camera on a bird, and Presley ran the one in Florida and some different things. But talking with Sean at Dying Breed, he was like, let me send Luke up with you, and why don't you guys finish this thing right? So we met back up in South Dakota and flew up and did the whole drive and did all that again. And I forget if it was 3:30 or 4 o'clock, but we got into camp like all you got time to do is roll over. I mean, lay down, roll over, pick up your shoes, and go again, kind of a situation. And we hit the ground running the next day, and once again we're on this the Rosebud out there, and it's a lot of beautiful land and a lot of country to see and a lot of birds. And now we're in the last week of the season out there, and these guys out there that I had hunted with previously, I don't know what your guys' take is on fanning turkeys. But that's what they kind of like to do out there, is what I find, is they like to fan them up and get them running into you. And I'm like, all right, I've never been that kind of turkey hunter. I kind of grew up, old school. Are you guys more run and gun or sitting patient, or do you guys do it all?
Pretty much, I'm fine with everything for the most part.
Yeah.
If I wanted to fan some turkeys, I'd want to change things up a little bit just to make it even more fun and take like a 410 judge with some TS number 10s, TSS in it or something.
Yeah.
I would want to limit myself a little bit, but I'm a run and gun guy. We're all,
Yeah.
for the most part, run and gun guys.
Well, and I am too. I'm a run and gun turkey hunter, but it's to the sense of, I grew up before you even thought about moving at a turkey or sticking a fan up in the air or any of that kind of stuff. But Neil hands me this fan and he says, when you see a bird way out in the field, just use it. And he said, they'll come running to you. I'm like, whatever. We'll try it, right? So Luke is Sean's son's name, who's out filming with me, and we're putting on the miles. I mean, we're seeing these birds and we're getting after them, and it's all field tops, and all the valleys are where the trees are at. So you can see the birds when they're out in the fields, and then you work the valleys if you don't see them, right? And I forget, but I think we're about 9 miles in, and we find this bird, and we're like, okay, he's not coming. He's not doing anything. Let's fan him up. Man, I put that fan up, and that joker ran as far as he could the other direction. And I'm like,
dang.
That's kind of how I always envisioned it happening when I would do it. So I was like, real quick, okay, that's out the window. We're not doing that. But it actually happened rather quick on that trip. I think it was that afternoon, the first hunt. We sat up and just a known spot for birds. There was a nice watering hole and just some beautiful country. It was real open with just some sporadic trees. And we'd been sitting there about an hour and just making some calls, and this hen just appeared out of nowhere. And there's another hen behind her, and they were about 80 yards, and they kind of eased over the hill out of sight, kind of towards the watering hole where we anticipated some birds probably hanging out. And so we knew there were birds in the area, so we got real patient. It was kind of one of those probably 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're not at the roost spot, but we're in a close enough vicinity we should be able to make a move on something if we see it. And next thing you know, those two hens came back out of that spot, and they had a red head behind them. And we had to really work that bird. I mean, he was tough. He was one of those, when you call him, he'd fade off, and then he'd come back up. And you'd call him, and he'd fade off, and he'd come back up. And Luke, at the time, was kind of a newer turkey hunter. And he says, man, if I didn't know any better, I'd think this bird's kind of call shy. And I was like, well, there's no such thing as a call shy turkey, in my opinion. You just got to speak the right language. So I kind of gave that bird about, it seemed like 5 or 10 minutes. It was probably 3 minutes, honestly. And I said, there's one call that I have that will, in my opinion, never scare off a turkey. So we just kind of cluck and purred, just cluck, purred, cluck, purred, cluck, purred, cluck, purred, cluck, purred. And all this action had been happening dead in front of me. And probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes go by, and Luke says, here he is. And he was dead left, coming up over the hill. And he was one of those birds that was probably 100 yards. You know how they stop and strut and just spin and look and stop and strut and spin and look. And he didn't want to come any farther. I was like, all right. We had the blind set up. We're both sitting behind the blind, kind of sitting next to each other. And I said, I'm going to try something I've never tried here before. And I get this fan, and I literally held it up outside the blind and start shaking it. And as I'm shaking that fan, he's in full strut and just like literally dancing in a circle and gobbling. And I put that fan down, and he'd run 20 yards and stop, and he'd start strutting again. And I put the fan back up. And I did that over and over for a few minutes. And he came in, and to my surprise, or to your surprise, I didn't have my gun. I left it at home on purpose because I had so many issues with it. So I just borrowed a gun from Neil when I got out there. And I pulled that trigger and I rolled that turkey. And I'm going to tell you, I said I didn't do it to accomplish the whole feat necessarily, but when I pulled that trigger, the feeling I had that went over my body that I just did a Royal Slam in a single season was awesome. And I know there's a lot of guys listening that's probably done it. And, you've seen guys do it in hours now, the Grand Slams and everything else. But the way I did it might be controversial for some people. Some people are like, that everybody's got their own way. But the way I did mine, and I'm very proud of how that happened. And that feeling that went over me when it was done was just awesome. And we sealed it off. I actually ended up getting 3 tags in South Dakota. I had 2 rosebud tags and a private tag. So we ended up killing another one on private the next morning. And I'd like to fill in this one hunt because we're talking turkey, and this is going to give you guys a theory I've never used before. Have you ever just called at a turkey, like a turkey's coming out and you call at them and they freak out and they kind of go hide or they go out of sight?
Like a Tom or a Jake?
A Tom, like
Okay.
when somebody says that turkey's call shy, right? Like that, you get that experience from the bird. Like he's either, you can see him and he's held up and he's being weird, or he's just not coming and you're like, oh, he's call shy. It's late season. So we made a move on this one bird, and we walked a mile from. Neil had seen him from his truck. He was spotting up on a hill, and he told us where he was at, and he dropped me a pin, and he said, y'all can get to that bird. And it was our last day there, and we're just kind of having fun, just we're turkey hunting. And we see this bird, and we get within 80 to 100 yards of the hens, and we get set up perfect. And the hens are kind of feeding, and I'm like, okay, all we got to do is get this gobbler, ease this side of the field a little bit. And I'm no expert caller. I'm not going to say I am. There's a lot of people out there that call a lot better than me, but there's a lot of people I guarantee are worse. So I'm pretty decent. But I put the call in, and I yelped a few times, and that entire flock of turkeys took off running across the field, 150 yards underneath the cedar tree, maybe 300 yards. And I was like, what just happened? All I did was purred and clucked a little bit. Well, maybe they saw us, like whatever. Let's kind of ease that way. So we're using the train in the trees, and we're easing that way. And as we're doing so, like, okay, let's set up and see where they're at. And they come back out in this big field, and they're trying to get across this entire wheat field off reservation land, because somehow it always works that way. 1 million acres, we end up on the corner of it. If that hadn't happened to you, I don't know. It's a bad feeling. And anyway, these birds kept coming back out, and every time I'd cluck or purr or make any sound at all, they would sprint right back to that tree. So I told Luke, I said, you know what? We're going to keep them on our property. Every time we see them, let's call at them and keep them underneath that tree and go kill them. So we did that for about an hour. Every time they come out, we'd call and they'd go back underneath that tree. And next thing you know, I am standing 25 yards from this tree, and Luke's kind of right behind me, and the birds come out, and I throw the gun up, and we're trying to get all this on camera for Dying Breed Television. And I look down, and Luke is looking at me like he just lost his puppy. He's on the ground looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, they're right here. I'm going to shoot. Can you get the camera? He's like, I can't see anything. So I put the gun down, and I was like, only thing I know to do is call at him again. So I kind of went, and they ran back underneath the tree, just like I needed them to, because I'm standing there like I would have been busted if they took 4 more steps. So we kind of backed up and went and rerouted, and we gave it a minute, and we ended up killing this other bird. But I wanted to tell you that technique just because it was so strange for me to use it, and I didn't know if anybody's ever used a technique similar to that.
Damn.
I can't say that I have.
No, but that would be fun.
It was a different kind of hunt.
Stay right there where I need you. I'm just going to gradually walk up to you.
And I didn't know what else to do, and it worked. But so Royal season was complete, and it was awesome. But I had already had it on the books, and it just kind of organically worked out to being we were going. Well, I say we because I had booked this hunt for Presley and myself to go both, and we were both go hunt the ocellated turkey together. Kind of one of those deals. I started this with my daughter. I'm going to finish it with her, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
She was actually on 3 of the 6, so it was pretty special. But actually, no, I guess she was only on 2 of them. But anyway, so we go back to Mexico, and it just happened to organically kind of work out where if I end up taking this bird in Mexico in the first 4 days, I will have done it all in a calendar year. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a cool stat to have on my own little shoulder, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we take off to the Yucatan, Mexico, and it's 114 degrees, and we're hunting in the jungle. And you want to talk about hot. Oh, baby. You could just see the sweat coming out of you. But if you've ever been in the Mexican jungle, you can see 10 feet in front of you, and that's it. And there's pockets where you can see more. But first morning, we're going through the woods, and we've got these 2 Mexican guides that do not speak Spanish in front of us, kind of leading us in. And typically when you sneak in on birds in the morning, you're trying to be quiet. But it's so thick, they're walking through with their machetes and their hatchets, making a trail as we're going through here. I'm like, there is no way we are going to kill a turkey in this place. And I kind of went different on this approach because you go on a guided hunt, you assume it's going to be lots of opportunity. At least that's how I think guided hunts are perceived by the majority of people. But at the end of the day, they're still animals, and we're still hunting wild animals. So I told Presley, I said, you can shoot first. I'll have my opportunity. So we get down there, and we're set up, and we're behind the Nukem blinds, and they were just not doing much that morning. And first morning, no sounds, no gobbles, no nothing. And next thing you know, we get one gobbling, and he's coming in, and he's about 30 yards, but it's one of those, you can just barely see him here and there. And he wasn't coming up. He didn't come in enough. He came in 20 yards and he was crossing left to right. And Presley was sitting on my right. And when that bird got over her, where she was swung all the way to the right, she tried to get a shot. And she's pretty good in the woods, but she's still, at the time, a 12-year-old kid. So it's not just pulling up and shooting every time. And I was in the camera. I didn't even have a gun ready. And she said, Dad, you're going to have to shoot it. So at that point, I just kind of, I don't know what kicked in, but I kind of pulled up a knee and grabbed the gun and swung over and ended up killing the bird. To my surprise, if you've never seen one, they weigh about 11 pounds. They're a big chick. I can get closer on this mountain in a minute and kind of show it to you, but they're a small bird. And then we hunted the rest of the time down there, and there again, Presley did not get an opportunity to get another bird. So you say all, but you know what that means?
You got to go back.
You gotta go back.
I get to do the whole thing over again because my daughter has only killed a bunch of Easterns.
We got to get her one, babe.
Yeah, so
There.
well, and Jeff and Gabby, his wife, were absolutely outstanding about it, and I would say most outfitters probably don't do this, but he was like, "Hey, next one's on me. All you got to do is pay your travel. Let me know when Presley can make it back." So we do have an opportunity. We're gonna go back down there. I think we're gonna line it up for her next year.
Nice.
Yeah, we kind of have a little, her and I, a little thing that she plays travel soccer, so it's kind of tough until she gets out of that once high school kicks in. But she wants to do a slam as well. So if it's by the end of high school, maybe by the end of college, who knows? We're not going to put a time limit on it, but I'm going to get to do this whole adventure at least one more time. So
Nice.
That'll
Pretty
be fun.
slick. I'd like to do I'd like to do a public land grand slam. Now, I don't think you can go public land outside of the U.S. unless you deal with the cartel. So probably doing the world thing, but
that might be tough. Yeah.
I tell you
I
what,
did beat some cartel along the way. That will be a whole nother podcast if you want to go over
Yeah.
that. He could probably hook you up.
Colombian Bam Bam and turkey hunting.
You know, so I told you when they said you guys can go to the second best spot, Luis was the landowner, and he said I'll go with you guys. So he spoke pretty good English, and he went with us, and he said, "Will you guys just hunt? I'm gonna go for a walk." Okay. He said, "If you see any cowboys, hide." I'm like, "What?" He said, "If you see any cowboys, they'll shoot you. Hide." And we're like, "Is this dude serious?" So now we're sitting there like in half fear, like, is some guy on a horse going to ride by? But luckily we didn't see any cowboys on our adventure, but I don't know what that would have came of if we did. But I guess they're just
Man.
out in Mexico still, a lot of them.
Good Lord.
Interesting.
Keep it going. I'm gonna check this camera.
So this you brought it up a couple times now, and like you got them sitting behind you. I want to hear more about Nukem blinds. I want to hear more about like how you came up with the concept, and you know what, like how did this whole thing come to be?
So honestly, the idea was a long time coming. You froze. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you look like you froze up on me. But anyway,
I'm listening super intently.
yeah, so it was a long time coming, and to say the least, once I decided in my life, I told you a little while ago, I had a lot more free time with Nukem Tree Service, and it got to the point where I had too much free time, and what that led to was me as a person drinking too much. And it didn't get to the point where it affected me as a dad, as a husband, but it got to the point where if I had one beer or 20, it was the same argument when I got home, in other words. And it wasn't, I wasn't abusive. I wasn't anything else like bad about it. And I personally made a decision. My wife and I went on a trip to Singapore and Thailand, and I told her when we were in Thailand, I said, "This will be my last drink you ever see me have." So I stuck to it. I'm at 8 years now.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. But so that was a personal feat for me, and I had grown a great business and I had it running, and now I quit drinking. So now I had free time. I know what free time is. I'm not trying to go and see a buddy. It's free time. So my wheels are turning, and this idea has been with me for a long, long time. And It's from the passion of turkey hunting. It's from the passion of living in the mountains. When you carry something in, you want it to be lightweight. You want to be mobile. And when you sit up on hillsides and everything else, every single blind on the market just wasn't doing it. You either had your shoulders sticking up above it, your head, your shoulders, everything else, or you were sitting too low and couldn't see out the windows, or I'm not knocking it, I'll still sit in them every once in a while, or it was four sides and a roof, and that's just not my style of hunting. Okay. So I needed something quick, portable, lightweight, and easy. And no, I didn't know it was going to be stake free. No, I didn't know it was going to be what it is today as far as mobile of a piece of equipment it actually is in the field. But I developed something, I got some prototypes made, and I decided to spend hours on hours on hours trying to save $800 and do a patent search myself. Okay. So I did all that, and I just couldn't find anything that was patented as far as for what I was designing. And I was still, I don't know how educated you guys are on design and utility patents, but there's a big difference. And I started applying for a patent, and next thing you know, I got a full utility patent, which in layman terms, the easiest way to explain what a utility patent is to somebody that doesn't know is if you've ever seen a Ford motor vehicle, they have a punch code on the outside.
Yeah.
They don't have that on Chevrolets and Dodges because Ford owns a utility patent and nobody else can copy that. Okay.
Oh.
So it's the strongest patent there is. So once I got issued the utility patent for the blind that I've developed, I had 2 or 3 prototypes. I was like, everybody I've shown this to thinks it's a good idea. Maybe I should, make a few more and see if I can sell them. So in true form that I've always done is I went all out. And instead of making a few, I talked my wife into, hey, let's spend our entire savings account and let's get a container full of these things and let's go jump in head first. And that's what I did. So I developed it, and I started selling them right at 4 years ago now, and it's been great. It's been the ups and the downs of starting any kind of business, and the biggest challenge I think is the Nukem hunting blind has so many options that you don't see it when you look at it. You look at that and you say that'd be great for kids, or you look at that and say, that's a cute little blind, like you don't realize what it is. And I know everybody's not watching, but everybody is listening. So I'm going to just kind of give you a quick trade show spiel of what it is. Okay. Let me grab something. So for the ones that are watching, our blind is as mobile as they come. It weighs 3 pounds in a bag. Okay. It folds up to 32 inches long. You can literally shove it right in your turkey pack. You can just be on the go with it. And you can go to a full setup in less than 30 seconds once you've done it a few times. So it's absolutely a mobile blind. And on accident, while design, when you widen it out, the wider you take the blind, the lower the windows go. Now, as a visual, if you take a teepee, everybody knows what a teepee is, and they need a teepee, and you cut it from the top down in half, now you have a 2-sided panel. That is the Nukem hunting blind. And instead of thinking of it as a ground blind that you sit in, think of it more as a screen you sit behind. So you sit far enough from it, you're going to pull up and shoot off the sides or through the windows. But what it allows you to do is sit back enough from a game's perspective, all your lower movements are contained and they're not seeing you move. It's not full concealment, and that's not what I want. I still want to feel like I'm in the woods. I still want to be a run and gun kind of hunter. But once you start hunting with these and you don't have it in front of you, you're going to realize like what you really get away with when you have it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the different features as far as you can do a 1-pole breakdown with it. You can roll it up, carry like a walking stick. Well, now you've taken it from, instead of setting it up in 30 seconds to setting it up in 5 seconds or less.
Yeah.
So it's just a how quick you can move with it and what it actually provides. And then, so we started out the company, and I went and I knocked on the door down at True Timber, which is about an hour from my house. And I said, "Hey, I got a great blind here. I'm gonna need some camo on it," kind of a deal. And he's, like, "Who are you? You have to make an appointment to come in here." and that's kind of how it started. I run a tree business. I didn't know anything about this industry. So long story short, I ended up getting True Timber as a licensee, and we started the company in only the regular size with 2 patterns. And I had just spent my life savings on a 20-foot container, and I show up at NWTF show for my very first trade show, and I'm like, "Man, we are gonna sell out this trailer." And I got my wife and one of my dad's friends helping me in the booth, and the first day, let me make sure you can hear me good, we sold 7. 7, okay? I wanted to turn back to alcohol at that time, but I didn't.
All right, I have to ask, why do you think you sold 7 blinds at the NWTF that day?
There was 7 people that gave it a chance, I guess. I mean,
What was your
what I have learned now is the NWTF is probably the one exception now, but 90% of the trade shows we do, the first day is very low sales. And that's just as a whole. Now, 7, that's unheard of anymore. Like, that's horrible. But it was one of those moments where I had to dig deep, and I was in good company. I had my wife and a good friend with me, and we went out to dinner, and it was kind of one of those, like, "Hey, it'll be okay, Pat." And I'm like, "That's not what I need right now. Like, we just need to, we're going to go out here, we're going to hit it tomorrow, and we're going to sell these things." And, honest answer to your question of why we sold 7, probably brand new, didn't know what I was doing, no clue. I've never worked a trade show. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up in some sales, but it was just different. But to make a long story short, the next day we dropped 140 of them. So
nice.
That makes you feel better. That kind of made the wife feel a little better about the investment we had just made. But the same day we did that, I had 4 guys from Mossy Oak standing in my booth telling me they needed Mossy Oak fabric on my blind, and I told them I got $100 in my savings account, and we can't make that happen. Kind of a situation. And what that forced me into, and I shouldn't say forced, what that led me into was also at the same show, a lot of people, I realized I built this for a turkey blind. I didn't realize all the people that would be deer hunting and waterfowl hunting and dove hunting and everything else with it. So all the time, "Hey, do you have anything you can sit higher with?" Because I didn't mention our regular size, you only sit on the ground to like your low profile turkey gobbler chairs. You can't sit any higher than that with the regular size. So I was like, okay, we have to make a bigger size, and we're going to have to do that soon before we miss half the market, is how I'm looking at this as a businessman. So literally that fall, we cut a lot of trees and we made a lot of money, and we made it happen where I could get another size. I also ended up doing a license deal with Mossy Oak, which made me grow an inventory, which isn't always a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing either. But we then basically added 2 patterns, added XLs in all 4 sizes, and we're still taking ground as a company trying to figure out what to do. And as anybody knows that's ever ran any kind of business, there's very, very much so ups and downs, and especially in the hunting world, when you've got, somebody here, I guarantee you, has a mentality in their head that I don't need that, whether it be a blind, whether it be a seat, whether it be whatever. I don't need that. I've never had that before. I'm not going to get it. And you know what? That's fine. I get it. There's always those kind of people. But there's also the kind of people that move too much, play on their phone, eat a sandwich, get busted, and need to maximize the opportunities while we're hunting, because you only have 3 days off work to hunt, or you only are a weekend warrior, and you don't have the time that, for instance, myself or somebody else has in the woods. So this gives you a great option. And so we grew the company, and it's now we're going into our 4th year, very strong. We've been doubling in sales every year. We have previously had it in 8 patterns. We actually launched some leafy patterns last year, and what that forced me into is growing too quick. And when I say that is, we made a double up system, which is great. We're selling them. It's where you can put 2 blinds together and 2-3 guys can sit on a field edge together and have more coverage, yet still weigh less than 8 pounds and set it up in a minute and be on the go. So that was good growth. The bad growth was I had 8 patterns, and you guys have been to my booth, right?
Mhm.
And I said, which color blind do you want, right? And you see it. There's too many options.
Yeah.
So as of actually today, this will be the first time it's even announced. They're actually still for sale on my website. We actually just sold out of all of our True Timber HTC green and bottomland patterns on purpose. And we're downsizing the company to 5 mossy oak patterns. And what we did was we took our top sellers and we simplified what we're doing. So now we're hitting the ground running in a different aspect. As far as the first 3 years in business, any podcast, anything I've ever done, it's been, this is what the Nukem blind is, this is how it works, and this is how you use this as a piece of equipment. And we're gonna turn our focus in business. And there's a lot of people, the reason they listen to you guys and the reason they listen to Christian Outdoors or Gamekeeper podcast or you name them, they listen to all these people because they want hunting tips, they want education, they want to learn as a hunter how to improve. If you've hunted for 80 years or you've hunted for a week, especially turkey hunting, you still have something to learn, as we all know.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And you're going to do it different than I am, and Rick's going to do it different than you are, and we're all going to hunt different. But at the end of the day, we all have the same outcome. So our focus this year is going to be not necessarily on how to use the Nukem blind, but we want to see you guys using it. We want to see content from other people using it. And this year, when I kill a bird, you're not going to see me. You'll see me celebrating, obviously, but it's also going to be some education. Hey, why did I set up right here? Why did you decide to sit where you sat today? And a lot of times that's the education that we can teach each other as hunters every time we hunt together. Is Rick's going to set up different than Chris, and I'm going to set up different than both of you. But why does that work? And why do we choose that tree, or why do we choose that funnel, or whatever? And I think as a company, if I can start helping educate anything in the turkey world, the little bit of turkey knowledge that I have, I'm going to try to share it. And we got a pretty badass piece of equipment to tag along with us while we do it. And I hope everybody listening at least looks at it and thinks about it. And if you're not that kind of hunter, don't use it. But if you know somebody that is, spread the name around for us a little bit and tell them about Nukem hunting blinds.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Dude,
man.
I'm kind of excited to sit behind it and deer hunt, if I'm being real. Like I can see where the application there is going to be pretty cool. I also have kind of a little theory in my head that like the lower profile you get with it and kind of lean it back to spread it out and drop those windows down, I just feel like you're going to hide more.
Well, I'm actually glad you said that, because everything you've heard me say in the development of this blind has been turkey related. And that was my mindset starting this company, was this is a turkey blind. And I hear that all the time. This is a turkey blind. We actually have an interview coming up with Walmart for our second interview. We're crossing our fingers. We're going to try to get in some of these big stores this year. But one of the biggest holdups they had is this is a turkey blind. We need something we can sell year round. When I showed them year after year, 3 years in a row, that our sales were twice in the fall what they are in the spring, they understood what the consumer's already seeing. And I've done it for years. We have a flat panel obsession blind right here. It doesn't have the Levy 3D on it, so it's just a flat panel. Before we came out with the 3D, I hunted with those blinds for years. And I got to the point where I was adding a little brush to them to fool the whitetail, right? Deer see it, but they don't pay it attention. It sounds crazy. Deer see everything. We all know that. But you put a regular ground blind in the woods, you got to brush it in a month ahead of time. You drop a Nukem blind in, I was brushing it in that morning. 3 sticks is all it takes. Once we came out with the leafy blinds, and I think that's what you got, if I remember, there's no more brushing them in. You will drop that down, and you'll have deer walk right up to you. They'll be right in front of you. And for whatever reason, and I think it's to your point, the low profile, the way they taper with trees, even on a fence line, whatever, for whatever reason, if the deer don't see it, it sure doesn't bother them. So I don't know what it is, but they don't pay
it. Like a down treetop to me. Like when it leans back rather than them looking kind of at something perpendicular, if you will, where it's like standing up. It's leaned way back, so it almost looks like a blown over treetop or something like that. And in my opinion, we're going to find out. But because I know deer and turkeys and everything in different regions and all, some are trippier than others and cagey and all that. But I mean, I think it's going to be pretty phenomenal and still be probably a little bit of a challenge with like an actual bow. But if you've got a freaking any kind of gun or a crossbow, that's a done deal.
Mhm.
Let me tell you why it has a point at the top, now that you mentioned that. So, have you ever bow hunted out of a blind?
I have
Okay.
a nightmare.
How many dead spots are in that blind?
A lot.
A lot.
Right. Right. So imagine making a blind without dead spots in it. Okay. How would you do that? You got to make it come to a point, right? And the reason this blind comes to a point at the top, I love archery hunting. Unfortunately, I can't do it as much anymore because of an old shoulder injury. But I've killed 50 plus birds behind this blind with a bow. Can't tell you how many deer with it, and people are doing it every day. And it's just there again, the education side of it. You're not sitting in it, you're sitting behind it. So when you're at full draw, you're behind this blind where you can scan left and right all the way. If you look at the one set up right here behind me, look at your field of view. Where's your dead spots?
Right.
You're going to shoot around it 95% of the time. You're just using that point to get to full draw, and you're blocking yourself while you're doing it.
Okay.
So I want you to use that thought when you're in the woods.
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was saying earlier is the education piece on this blind. That's the hard part to sell.
Yeah.
A percentage of people see it and they instantly understand it. And then a percentage of people see it and they get it. But that last touch of information that you get, and that's where we're trying to educate more and more, is to teach you guys all the different functions of this. Don't think of it as a blind. Think of it as a screen in front of you to block your movement.
Okay.
Yeah,
Crossbow, bow, whatever you want to hunt with.
there are a lot of applications. I'm really excited to use mine this year for turkey and for deer. I feel like, I mean, bow hunting off the ground has been around for a long time, but I feel like there are more and more people getting into it, and especially in like our space, the quote unquote mobile hunter, right?
Yeah.
Because there are certain situations where sitting on the ground does provide a pretty good advantage. Whether that be, you want to control your scent profile that way, being low to the ground, or in some cases, if you're bed hunting and you can only go so far, trying to use the terrain so that way the deer isn't seeing you, and sometimes there are not many trees in that case, or you're only getting a stick high.
Well, and when it's bow season, right? Like the woods are green.
Yeah.
Half the trees you can set up, you can't see out of if you don't trim 15 or 20 branches out of your way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, the saddle hunting, and I've been saddle hunting for years being a tree man. That's how I used to do it. And I was always the guy that 100% believed I'm getting up a tree, I'm staying up a tree, I'm going to be 30 foot, I'm going to be out of the wind. Like that was how I hunted until 5 years ago. Since then, I've been in a tree 2, 3, 4 times. I still do it. But the excitement, the adrenaline, and the deer I started killing when I started sitting on the ground were outweigh any hunt I ever had in a tree.
Yeah.
And to your point, you can get in bedding areas, you can sit on fence rows, and this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people. But you look back here at a deer that I've got on a pedestal behind me. You sit in a tree stand in Kentucky and there's a field and this deer walks across that field every day at 200 yards and you got a bow in your hand. There's no trees between me and that field. How are you going to kill that deer with a bow?
Right.
Well, you find that little draw in the middle of that field. You take your Nukem line out there in the middle of it and you shoot that deer at 18 yards.
That's pretty badass.
And it's one of those things that, yeah, it worked out that time. It might not next time. But I'm not sitting here telling you this is the tool to hunt with. It is a tool to add to your arsenal.
Sure.
Just like you just said, the mobile deer hunters, right? Like we have mobile deer hunters that aren't saddle hunting. We have mobile turkey hunters that sit in their ground blinds. Carry this with you and throw it at the bottom of your tree. How many times have you been in the woods and the deer are moving in an area today that you're sitting there watching them 100 yards away?
Yeah.
Treat it just like you do a turkey hunt and get down and get over there and be mobile and get in the area. Yeah, you might not shoot the 4 deer that just walked through, but something else is coming behind them. So yeah, just treat it like a tool. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's a tool to use in the woods. I'm going to use every advantage I can on anything I hunt.
Absolutely. That's pretty
Then let me start using grenades. I promise you, I will throw a grenade at a turkey.
There's your title, Rick.
Yeah. There are some areas we like to hunt, old grown up fields, really hardly any trees to get into, just places that are just hard to hunt from like a traditional standpoint. That's something like that where you can throw up in front of you, provide a little bit of screening cover, and just set up on a trail would provide a pretty good advantage.
Absolutely. And, you know, like I want everybody that's listening to go check them out. Look at the website. It's nukemhunting.com and it's Nukem, and use code Nukem20 at checkout. Get 20% off. We offer free shipping on the website and try it out. And you know what? You're going to buy one of my blinds for what you can buy about 8 shotgun shells for. So they're very affordable and they're going to last you for years. Say what, TSS?
Okay.
Hey,
That matters.
my daughter shoots the 410 and I think 6 shells is like $59 or 5 shells $59. I mean, it's ridiculous. Our blinds are anywhere from $100 to $130 and you get 20% off of that. So if you can try it out, I'd love you to. And if you don't want to give it an effort, you know, we hit about 15 shows a season. We'll be at yours coming up in Georgia. Come by, shake my hand, get a free demo, and see what they're about. I mean, that's why we do the shows. I don't do the shows to sell blinds. I do the shows to get out there and meet these guys and hear stories about people hunting with them.
It's a family reunion.
Nice.
It's fun. You're
is.
gonna like the show a lot. We hearing you talk about your first show really hits home because we started this when a bunch of these companies were starting. So everybody had a table at our show. They're like hanging a little crappy looking sign behind them or whatever that they fiddle diddied on their way, you know, down.
Well, you're 4 years in, right?
This is the year 5.
So yeah, we're right on the same page. And what we didn't mention, either one of us, is this is all right out of COVID. So all this planned during COVID.
We started this podcast literally when in the height of COVID when the shutdown happened.
Trust
2
me,
weeks
I know.
after.
That's when I started my manufacturing. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
And so it's really cool though, because we've watched a lot of these guys get shops in different buildings, and you know, one went from a pretty good company to now they're in like all the Shields, and you know they're big time, you know, and you see their booth spaces. And I'm sure this is probably something that you had where maybe you just had a table or what, you don't know what to bring. You have no idea.
Oh, the first ATA show, I had a 10x8 table.
Yeah.
And now if you catch me in a 20-foot booth, I'm in a small one.
Yeah. And so they didn't have any kind of decor or anything. And now we've got the nicest booths out of any show I've ever seen. And it's just everybody puts something really nice together. It's slick as hell.
Well, you know what? And that's something for people to understand is the reason you do your show and the reason that we go to all these shows across the country is because 95% of the people that attend these shows as vendors are us small people that still work second jobs, that still are trying to grow a company. We're not you're going to go to some of these shows and you're going to have the big companies, but if you want to see the true innovative products in the hunting world, you have to attend these trade shows because that's where you're going to see the majority of them. And that's where, I hope to make it big one day. I really do. I really hope that we're everywhere and everybody knows what Nukem hunting is. But the reality of it is the majority of the guys that do these shows have been doing them year after year after year, selling to people that are listening to this podcast, that are coming in there and seeing products that they can't buy anywhere else.
Yeah. It's funny to listen to some of those dudes talk because they're like super particular about what and where their booth space is and the whole not they start asking us questions and we're like, especially a year or two ago, we're like, damn, man, like, can you tell me why you asked me that? I need to know this so I could, we've absorbed so much information. It's unreal. And it's so difficult to do those shows just because all of the logistics side.
I cannot imagine what you got to deal with.
And you're looking at the team, by the way, like this isn't like a 40-person team where we've got people that are able to go check on it's us. We're everywhere the whole time. My man Rick over there is running the podcast the entire time with all the guest speakers, and then he's also in charge of the staff. Josh and I are floating in and out trying to help staff, but also help vendors. So it's like it's a grind. And then we get the pleasure of taking everybody out to dinner afterwards, which is
you didn't tell me you were buying dinner.
Not the vendors, damn it.
You said everybody, brother.
We take the staff out, and the other thing that we run into is it's so much fun, and you get to drinking a couple beers or whatever, and you're hanging out with everybody. Everyone is so serious about deer hunting and learning about deer hunting. So you're just nerding out the whole weekend. And before you know it, like I sleep for like 2 days when we get home. It's crazy.
I wish I had that much time between shows. Usually I only got about 48 hours, and it's I'm at the end of the grind right now. It started second week of January, and we're in the last week of February right now. And I've got one more show this weekend, and I get 2 weeks off and one more. So I've been back to back every week. And come see these trade shows, because if these vendors work hard for it, the guys that set it up work hard for it. I mean, it's awesome. And yeah, small companies, like you said, I mean, I just hired a guy actually this week that's going to be the director of Nukem hunting as we move forward. But now we have a staff of 3. So I know what small business is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned some filming with your slam.
Yep.
Do you have that on a YouTube channel or something?
I have actually need to get that up. I haven't. It's it aired on Dying Breed TV. I had to wait for that to air.
Okay.
It aired on Dying Breed TV. I actually need to get Sean. I'll get that up here in the next couple of weeks, and you guys can watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And do you have
It's homemade footage, okay? Do I what? I'm sorry.
Do you have your own YouTube channel already?
Yeah, so there again, just talking about, a business that a man wears many hats. That's one of the platforms I haven't been able to grow. But like I mentioned earlier, our 25 is we're basing content, and we're building a team, and we've got 500, 600, 700 followers on YouTube, and there's not a lot of videos on there. There is some. You can get some education pieces. You can see a couple of hunts I've posted on there here lately. So you can see a little bit of action in the field with them.
Okay.
But look at 25. You're going to see every hunt we do is going on YouTube. You're going to see a lot going on, and I got a big spring lined up. I'm personally doing. I know Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kansas, Missouri, Wisconsin. I mean, I'm going to be getting
Be all over the place, huh?
Gonna be getting after it.
Nice.
All right. Well, dude,
I got the itch, man. And
oh, I'm ready to scratch mine myself, dude. I'm ready to put some down.
so when's the first hunts you guys are on?
I'm in Alabama at the end of March with my boy Jacob Emery.
Yeah.
I'm first weekend in when is that? First weekend in April with both my sons
Nice.
in Kentucky.
There you go.
Yeah.
As of right now, for sure, Kentucky opener, which is what, the second weekend, Rick?
Second weekend in April.
Yeah. I do have an invite from Shane Parker for April 1st down south. I might look into that.
The Bama.
The Bama.
Bama. I'm gonna start in Florida the third week of March. I got to do Palmetto Expo. I'm going right after that. But
Hell yeah.
maybe our paths will cross and we can line up a turkey hunt somewhere sometime.
Always go scare the hell out of some birds, man.
Well, you might not be invited if that's your mentality.
Don't worry. If you're with Chris, birds die. You don't have.
I guarantee you're a lot of fun to be involved.
We don't mess around. They all make fun of me because we hunt with a guy that's pretty good turkey caller named Pierce Moore, and he'll call them in real close more often than not. And once they break about 80 yards, they see the gun barrel starting to raise up, and they're like, "No!"
Hey, but and I guarantee a lot of people will vouch for this. Some of the best hunts you've had, it doesn't end with a dead bird.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And you know what? You get to chase that one again.
Yeah,
you do.
Some great ones and with a dead bird, but I've had a few. We'll have to tell the Matt story sometime. Getting cut down. Last day of the season, my buddy, love you, Matt. If you still listen to us, he probably hates me already. We were sneaking around, it's last day of the season, and we seen some jakes, and then here comes the one gobbler. We had a big hatch, and there was 10 jakes and one gobbler in the field every time. I could see him all the time, but we never could kill that gobbler because they'd run him off.
Yeah.
So we slipped in there, and he shot at the bird, in my opinion, a little sooner than what he should, which is coming from me. And he missed him. And of course, I tell him, I'm always like preaching to him to be aggressive. I'm like, get out there, run out into the field and try to get a more clear shot before he gets too far. Well, he takes off on a dead sprint, and there's an old laying down old fence, and it cut his ass in two. And I seen him fall, and I was like, that's the hardest fall I've ever seen anyone take. Landed on his gun. Thank God he didn't blow his damn head off. So then we slipped back around on that bird and watched him roost. And I believe in my heart of hearts, my first hunt on that farm the following year, I killed that bird right off the roost because we had 10 jakes and one mature tom. And it's a farm place. It's not like woods where you have birds coming in and out and you see different.
Oh, yeah.
You would see the same damn birds every time. We used to have some gobblers missing like a middle tail feather. You'd see the damn thing every time, right? So it was very odd. And I kill this bird and I walk up and he's actually right here.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it that
he's
bird?
got
Yeah.
7/16 spurs. And I was like, whoa, look at these hooks. And then we ended up killing another bird that morning that had a good beard, but he only had like, an inch and whatever, 3/16 or something, which is still, nice hooks. But
Oh, I don't care what the hooks look like.
yeah, well, I'm a hook guy, but it's how often do you kill one with really, really big hooks? So I like a full tail fan. And if you could gobble, I'm pretty excited about it.
If you gobble like a man, you're going to get shot in the face.
Yeah.
That's a real turkey thing right there. You gobble like a man, I'll treat you like a man.
So, I don't know how much time you guys got, but turkey tips and techniques, just a quick one that I like to ask people when I talk to them about turkey hunting. How many of you guys roost birds? Do you?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so just real quick, let me just lay this out and let me know if this is how a typical roost situation is for you. You go out hour before dark, roughly, whatever. You sit there, you listen for birds. When that bird gobbles and you locate it, then what?
I'm going to go literally walk in with the brightest headlamp in the world at 3:30 in the morning while he's sleeping. I'm going to sit under his roost and I'm going to kill the little bastard the next morning.
But how do you know where he's roosting? So the reason I asked that.
Are you talking about triangulating a bird's gobble?
No, so what I've done the past several years, I'm a big coyote hunter. So there's been several times I've been out at night coyote hunting and you hit a yelp and you hear birds gobble. So when I go out and roost birds, you know, we've all done the different techniques in the evening with owl hoots and this and that. And if they're not lighting up, I let it get pitch black and then I'll hit a yelp or whatever. And a coon squaller, a coyote yelp, and that bird, when he gobbles, in the mountains, you don't know that tree that you want to walk to with the flashlight on top of your head and go sit up underneath it. You know he's over there on that ridge, or you know the general vicinity.
Sure.
So what I've done, and I just like to tell this because I'd like to see if anybody else does it, and because it's turned out to be very effective for me. I actually spend some pretty good time in the woods shortly after dark. Once I've got him hitting one of those predator calls or something, then I can switch to a owl hooter. If I've got somebody with me, I'll leave you behind. You keep hitting it from where you're at, and I'm tracking in and I'm trying to figure out exactly where that bird's at. And that turned into last year. There's actually, I just posted one of those videos that my daughter killed a bird. And we had 7 fly down hunts last year that turned out to be kills, which was
nice.
Man, I tell you what, that excitement when you're that close to a roost, and I'll get close. I mean, I'm not going to go sit right up underneath him, but I'll get 30, 40 yards if I can and sit down. Typically, if I've gotten closer than that, my luck just isn't there in the morning. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it doesn't work out. And I just didn't know if anybody else uses that kind of roosting technique.
That's pretty intelligent, really.
Yeah. It's because I've heard of some guys will try and roost a bird in the evening, and then they hear him gobble and feel like that's where he's roosting, and then they'll go back the next morning, and then he's actually like shifted a little further one way or another, and he's not exactly where he thought they were.
Well, that's because they move, and then the other side of that is we all hunt a lot of public. Would you rather get that bird fired up at 9 o'clock at night or at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. 9 at night.
So that is the main thought to me is now, and then there again in the mornings, I haven't had the best luck. If I don't know where the turkeys are roosted, I'm a very early caller. I'll start on a purr pot or something, and I'll purr pretty early. I've had the mentality of I want to be the first thought that goes through that gobbler's mind this morning, because he's not going to forget I'm here. And it seems to work unless I'm right uptight on him. And then I'm kind of, when I've done that uptight, I've never had very good success. So I've kind of changed that to when I get in tight, I'm letting him do some talking and flying down before I'm calling.
I'll send you my hunt from last year. It was unreal. Literally like directly overhead, but offset behind me, like 30 feet up in a tree. He's I hear, you know, at like 5:45 in the morning, I'm like, is that one spitting on a limb this early? And I kept hearing it. And then all of a sudden just scared the dog shit out of me. Just let one ring out. And there's like 5 gobblers roosted, you know, within 30 yards of each other.
So what was your technique that you used?
So we don't hunt as big a stuff as you're hunting like at home and everything. So for me, I'm kind of using compounding factors. So kind of like you, I'll run some cameras when I can, when they work. You know, it's not like where you can,
I get it.
it's not like the easiest thing to pattern a turkey with cameras, but I try to find very consistent roost sites. And then when I find those, I honestly don't have to roost the birds. I'll go listen one morning before season just to kind of check. And then it's like bed hunting a deer for me. Now, that's not something that's going to happen everywhere. The situation you talked about is much more common where you got.
I was more or less asking, once you set up underneath a bird, they're roosted here.
Oh, okay.
What's your calling technique? And are you letting him come to life and do his thing? Or are you come to
I
life first?
I didn't say a word. I had a decoy out so he could see it. I didn't say a word because that one, I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And literally on film, he pitches out of the treetop like a helicopter, comes straight down, and then walks to my right. And of course, gets just out of frame. And I shot him at 13 steps or something stupid.
That sounds almost identical to that one that Presley had last year that she killed that I just posted. Same kind of situation. But I was wondering because I've found when I'm silent in a roost, I'm having better luck. And that's why I was asking that. If you're fortunate enough to get that close in the morning.
Yeah, the tighter you are, which I think it's easy to get close. I learned this on accident. That was public too. We do a lot of public. I learned on public. We went to a spot where I'd had some luck with some buddies before, and there were 4 of us sitting there cutting up, whispering, of course, but we're just telling stupid jokes, dying, laughing, making more noise than we should. Shit, we had 3 birds sub 100 yards roosted. We had one at 60, one at 80, and another at about 65, 70 yards roosted. Buddy shot and missed one, and I thought, damn, we had our phones on all morning long, lights, walked in with headlamps. How do we get this close to all these birds? Plus a bunch of hens. So we started doing that, but we just get it. When I say we're set up at 4 o'clock in the morning sipping coffee. So
I get it. I'm an early riser.
You're going in there super early because they're asleep. They're dead asleep to the world unless something's woke them up. So as long as you don't break a stick or do anything noisy, I walk in with literally you could turn a car headlamp on.
Well, and see around here, you're walking in so many leaves and stuff. I mean, you're making noise.
Yeah.
There was a time years back, I took a guy he was my college roommate, wanted to go turkey hunting. Brand new farm, I've never hunted it. And you play the east side. They're going to roost here. And you got a feeling. I walk up through this field and we sit down on this medium-sized oak tree side by side. This is before I ever had blinds or anything. And we're sitting there side by side and like you said, early in the pitch black. I said, hey, man, is it supposed to rain? Because, you can just hear it starting to rain. He said, I don't think so, man. And as daylight comes, we realized we were sitting underneath a spot. I went and looked up and there were 5 gobblers. And that wasn't rain that was dropping. Of course, it got daylight and they all pitched out of sight because we had made way too much noise and they saw us. We were sitting 12 feet underneath them.
Yeah. But,
I enjoy bumping a turkey as much as I enjoy killing one sometimes just because they make you feel like an idiot.
They scare the hell out of me when that B-1 bomber takes off out of the treetops.
But just let you know, we've all got so much more to learn every time you get in the woods.
Every time.
We're not perfect. And if you killed one every time, I want to kill one. I want to kill 2 every time. But if you killed one every time, it wouldn't be fun anymore. And
yeah, it's still be fun.
Although watching that little head just change color, watching their mood, their body language, hunting with my buddy Pierce is about as fun as it gets because he's almost got like a turkey fetish. He will climb the ladder with his calling and force these birds to gobble it. Come in. It's phenomenal. And he's so patient, and I hate him for that because I'm not patient at all. I just want you to come screaming in so I can blow your head off.
Yeah. I just consider that playing the bird's temperature. And
he really does a great job with that.
And a lot of birds, that's what it takes, I think, to get, especially those big mature birds that have been hunted. Once you get them, you know, we've all hunted the silent birds that show up, and those are some of the biggest birds you'll ever kill. But once you get in that turkey zone, right? When I say in the zone, we all know you got to get close enough to let him know we're in action, and that's when we're in his zone. And you get in his zone and you get his concentration. That's when you can do exactly that. And you can play with his temperature. The hotter he is, the hotter I am. And God forbid if you can get a hen to start going in with you. And then you get that big old white head, and you know he's about to charge 80 yards into your lap.
We talk so much shit to hens, dude.
Yeah,
It's
that's my favorite. If I can get a hen pissed off and talking back and get her to come, I'd rather just, once she's in, just let her do her thing and just be a live decoy for me.
you know what?
Unless, and it happens, and this is another technique, right? When you do that and she takes them straight away from you.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's annoying as hell.
See, I say dead bird right there when that happens.
It's interesting to me, and I'm not like a turkey pro or anything. The few times I've got to do this, where you literally basically are almost ignoring the gobbler and you're talking to the hen.
Oh, yeah.
Thing, and I think it drives him nuts. That a lot more often than not, when you start going back and forth with a hen, it's almost like he's gobbling like, "Hey, no, this is about me," or whatever.
I can handle both, y'all.
Yeah.
Let me handle this.
It's very interesting.
That's when
fun.
your game of patience better come in, because
Oh,
you can wait it out a long time. And one thing I've learned is when they do go straight away from you, a lot of people have the tendency, when they decide that they're not coming in, to get up and walk towards that turkey. And to me, that's the 100% worst thing you can do. I don't walk away from them either, but that's when you find another route to cut off a 45 from them, or you come in and try to circle out in front of them. You try to come in from a different angle, a different approach that you haven't tried. I feel like when you, especially on Miriam's or something, when you're going off in behind them, you're going to run them all to death. You're just going to stay behind them all day.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, if you can take another route, I mean, that's what I like.
You get an eastern goblin and get let off by a hen, and then you go try to cut him off, and then he gobbles where you just were. Because more often than not, you sat there calling, trying to.
That's why I said it's a game of patience. You got to give it a while before you get up.
Just stay there, but I never do. I was, you were talking about hunting a certain way. I was raised to sneak up on turkeys and not call them. That's how I started. And so it took a while to like sit in one spot and care about calling. And I just learned how to use a mouth call in 2020. I couldn't make a damn sound to save my life. So now I've got kind of this newfound love, different aspect of turkey hunting. And it's quite fun to be able to carry on what I would consider an appropriate conversation with a bird, like an appropriate response time, rather than getting your call back out and, then you can answer him. And it's a different game.
Well, that's what gets you hooked. And, no matter what you do turkey hunting, the best thing you can have is patience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can leave it at one thing, when you're ready to get up and move, and when you're ready to get up and leave, look at your clock, set a timer. I personally do 15 minutes. You don't call, you don't do anything except for put that entire story that you've had play out with you all day together in your mind. You're figuring out your next move. But more importantly, you're giving it 15 minutes without calling, without doing anything else. And anybody that's fell asleep in the woods and woke up to a bird gobbling, it's because you were silent. Mm-hmm. And you will kill more in that 15, 20 minutes sitting there, because like you just said, they will circle back and they'll come back to you. Yep. Or they'll get done with that hen and they'll start gobbling. But that is a solid rule of thumb that is very hard to practice in the woods, because we're a go mentality. And what anybody has to remember, that turkey lives there. He's not in a hurry to go anywhere. It might seem like he's went a mile, but he's went 100 yards.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes isn't changing his route. And it sure as hell will change yours if you sit there and you put the puzzle together and you plan on approaching the way you need to approach. And more times than not, you might kill them right where you're sitting. And I'm a patient hunter, but at the same time, I'll get up and run with you when we need to go. So
Yeah. Hell yeah, man.
Good deal.
Well, dude, we really appreciate you coming on the show and talking turkeys with us, telling the story of your slam and everything, and looking forward to seeing you at the Southern Show this year. Hope you have a great rest of your show season as well. And then, of course, an absolutely banger turkey season, huh?
oh yeah. And I want to thank you all for having me. I mean, we've gotten to kind of know each other a little bit the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
glad I got the calendar to work out because I'm really excited about trying out your show. And I think we're gonna be a good fit for it.
I agree.
It's just good to get to know more people in this industry, and it's an honor that I'm on your show, and I appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. And if nothing else, I expect to start getting some pictures here in a couple of weeks of some birds down. And hey, if you can sneak a blind in that picture and send it to me, I love seeing it.
Oh yeah.
Get out there and use it.
Man. Will do, dude. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show. And to everybody who's still tuned in to our turkey banter here, we appreciate you guys listening. Y'all have a good one.
Have a good night.
See ya.